Hey everyone, good afternoon. It's Denise and Cait. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Friday afternoon. Welcome everyone. I'm just going to quickly check to see if we're live. Cait, give me just a second and then we'll get started.
Okay, sounds
good. We're on.
Perfect.
I always get so excited when I see that we're actually live in the group and the systems are working, all the tools are working so that we can share our message with our group. So I'm so excited. Hi everyone. I have Cait Ross with me. She is amazing. I'm going to do just a very quick introduction, but then I want for Cait to share with us a little bit about herself and what she does for her clients. And thank you. I just saw a heart. I appreciate that. Comment please below. Let us know you're here. We always appreciate engagement, right, Cait? We always love interaction.
Absolutely. We love it.
Yeah. So, and there we go. I'm just checking again. Okay. Awesome. Very nice. Hello, ladies. I see Lorraine is in the group. She's saying hi.
Hi, Lorraine.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to talk about stress today, Cait. Are you ready to talk about leveraging stress? How to leverage it?
I am.
Good. Well, I just want to introduce my very special friend. Her name is Cait Ross. She is a women's health coach, and she is a corporate wellness consultant, CEO and founder of Modern Health Pros. She is amazing. She's an expert in this field. And as you all know, I invite the thought leaders, the experts in their fields who can help us find alignment, which is what this group is about. So everyone give me some love, give Cait some love, show us some love. And then I'm going to turn the microphone over to Cait so she can, we're getting hearts so that she can share with us, who she is. So Cait, please, if you can, share with our group a little bit about yourself and what you do for your clients.
Sounds good. Thanks for the warm introduction, Denise. I'm so excited to be here and connect with everyone in the Align365 group. So as Denise mentioned, I am the CEO and founder of Modern Health Pros. And what Modern Health Pros is really a business, a brand, and a community where I help and my team helps corporate professionals and modern women have true health and vitality in their lives. So we take a very holistic approach to health where we really, I call it the 5-pillar model. We talk about mindset, nutrition, lifestyle, movement, and community, and really help professionals to leverage those 5 areas of their life to have true health and vitality in the sense of the word. So I believe that everyone has a purpose in life, but I also believe that in order to live our purposes to the fullest extent, we have to have our health. You know, if we don't have energy, if we have brain fog or fatigue, or we're experiencing these physical, mental, and emotional symptoms, we can't live life to the fullest extent and really enjoy our time here, the short amount of time we have on this earth. Yeah. So I've made my mission in life to help people really define what health means to them. And because when we think about health and why people get sick and why we even go to the doctor's office, there's a lot of information out there around stress. It's like this evil word that I think we start to fear. So what I do in a lot of the root foundational work that I do with my clients is in what I call stress engagement. So I don't even use the word stress management. I really talk about stress in terms of how we leverage and embrace it in our lives as a driving force for positive growth, rather than what we typically hear with stress is like, let's avoid it, let's fear it, let's, try to manage it all day, every day. So I really challenge the clients that I work with and the companies and professionals I work with to shift their perspective when it comes to stress. Yeah. So I'm super excited to be here and talk more about alignment and what that looks like in terms of stress and the work I do.
Thank you so much, Cait. So as you're talking about health and wellness, a comment just popped in from our friend Jamie. Thank God I'm home with a cold, she writes. I can actually focus on this away from work.
Oh, I love it. Not that I love that you have a cold, but
Yeah, we want you to feel better, Jamie, but
Yeah.
we're glad you're here. You're focusing on how to leveraging stress, and plus, Cait and her amazing framework. We'll have to invite you back, Cait, so we could talk a little bit more about that framework. You've got these amazing pillars, and I think we all need to hear a little bit about that further. But for today, we're going to talk about that stress, and you mentioned alignment. Can you share with the group, what does alignment mean to you on a personal basis?
Yeah, I love this question. It just totally speaks to my heart. So the way I define alignment is really a state of being that occurs when what you think, say, and do are in harmony. Yeah. The thoughts that you put out there, the intentions, and the actions that are ultimately behind those intentions are all matched up in sync and are flowing accordingly.
Yeah. Oh, that's so perfect. And so when life happens, because life happens, that's, kind of the deal we made to enter these physical bodies. Stuff happens. So how do you stay in alignment? How do you personally find alignment?
Yeah, so I have a few things. There's 3 that really come to mind. So one of which is I've developed core morning and night routines that are like my non-negotiables in life. So whether I'm traveling, and they look a little different when maybe I'm traveling and not, home based, but I have a very kind of systematic and formulaic way of how I start my day and how I end my day. And those routines are rooted in a few key things. So meditation is a component of that. Gratitude is a big component of that. I believe that when we want to cultivate or create more or something new in life, we can only do it from a beautiful state of being. So I believe there's really 2 states of being, and we can only be in one or the other at a given time. And one is a suffering state, and the other is a beautiful state. And I believe the best way to connect into that beautiful state of mind is through gratitude.
Beautiful.
So gratitude is a big piece of that, and then just intentional journaling. So I do a lot of writing just to get, especially when I first wake up, like getting the thoughts out of my head and on paper. It's amazing. The things that I uncover through that work. And then the last piece I would say most importantly is connection and community. Yeah. I'm someone who specifically is really fueled by my connection and my relationships with others. And there's a lot of science to prove these things too. And I think we're all a little different, but I think we could all benefit from leveraging one another and finding that support. But I know for me personally, it's like whether it's friends, family, loved ones in general, like I really rely on my connections with others to help fuel me when I'm feeling out of alignment.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your personal perspective. For those of you watching and for you, Cait, we do this at the top of every interview. We ask our expert to share with us what their definition of alignment is and what they do to stay in alignment when stuff happens. Because we want to learn from you on a professional level, but also on a personal level. And so this gives us an opportunity to kind of get into your head and kind of learn a little bit about what you do on that personal level. And so let's talk about stress. How about we get into what everyone came here to listen to hear you talk about, and how to leveraging stress. Now, I do see a question in the comment section. We're going to get to all the questions, I promise. So hang tight. We're going to, and for those of you who are tuning in, say hello, give us some love, give us some likes, and also post those questions in there. We'll make sure we answer them before we end our call today. I promise you that. So Cait, will you please share with us, your perspective on stress and tell us, how do we leverage it?
Yeah. So what I love to start with is how do we define stress? I think ultimately there's a lot of definitions for it. And I think the way you define it really sets the foundation for how you either leverage it or what your relationship with stress ultimately looks like. So my favorite definition of stress, one of them is stress is something that arises, a feeling, when something we care about is at stake. So ultimately I love the way that that's defined because it puts stress in this different world of let's not fear it as this monster that should be avoided, even though we know that it's an inevitable part of life. It really shifts our way to look at it from, okay, this is a natural occurrence biologically that happens with inside of us physiologically when whether it's a career-related topic, a relationship-related topic, like anything that arises. And ultimately, there's a spectrum, right? Like, we have these daily hassles, like sitting in traffic, dealing with a boss that we maybe don't completely love or resonate with. We have obligations like taking kids to school or dropping them off at activities. We talk about these as stressful. And then we also talk about larger life events and transitions, you know, more serious things like major life transitions, going through a loss of a loved one as stressful events. And really, there's a lot of science to prove that no matter which end of the spectrum you find yourself under currently, whether you're dealing with just a bunch of daily hassles or you're dealing with larger life events, there's a lot of things you can be doing to really, like I said, redefine your relationship with stress. So my first favorite thing to think about is when we talk about stress is getting to know your stress mindset. So how do you, just noticing the little ways you even talk and reference, like the words you use around stress, and becoming a little bit more mindful to really understand, like, where do I fall? Do I fear stress? Do I have a love-hate relationship with stress? This is something that I personally resonate with. I used to use stress as this like driving force to achieve all my goals, and I would push myself too far. And then I would find myself in this state of anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout because I leveraged it like that for too long and didn't take enough time for myself to reflect and pause, find alignment, those types of things. So I think we all fall into different categories. So the first is, you know, getting to know your stress mindset, and then knowing that our brains are wired to survive, not thrive. There's a lot of science around the idea of neuroplasticity, which is the idea that we can actually rewire our brains through things like mindfulness and some of this inner work. So knowing that whatever your current mindset is, it just does not mean that you're going to have that forever. You can absolutely change your mindset by doing certain things, you know, in a systematic and supportive way, to shift your perspective. So some of my favorite things are acknowledging your personal strengths and values, like what are your core values? And in those moments of stress, like when we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed, thinking about our core values and thinking about, well, how does this link back to my core values? And there's a reason that I'm doing this, because ultimately stress equals meaning. We can't have a meaningful life if we don't experience stress. So instead of trying to go out there and do all these things to manage stress, let's actually put our arms around, let's get our arms around it and see what we can do to actually shift that. So one of my other things, I have a 3-step process that I go through, which some of the mindset stuff I just talked about is a big component of the first phase of that, where we go in and kind of assess stress. But I think it's really good to kind of go through that assessment process when you're thinking about the stress in your life, because ultimately there's different types of stress on a biological level. So there's physical stress, like poor diet, lack of exercise, poor sleep habits. There's mental and emotional stress. There's perceived stress that doesn't really exist, but we view it as this kind of enemy or something that we should, again, avoid. And the brain really does not know the difference between what's real and what we imagine in our minds. So again, this is where a lot of the mindset stuff comes in, where we can really shape our perspective. But when it comes to things like physical stress, a big part of the work that I do, I have a background in nutrition, so a big part of what I do when it comes to the physical body, because I believe, again, health is holistic. We have to address stress at every level, starting with the physical body. So things like poor diet or bad habits that ultimately affect our physical body are things that we can absolutely address and manage, maybe at a more mechanical level. Like we can decide to eat something versus something else. We can decide to work out in a different way. These are all more mechanical. But really what it comes down to is you have to do work at all of the levels to, I believe, find that kind of core balanced state where you feel good physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you're grounded in all of those areas. And it certainly takes practice. It takes intention. It's not something that just falls into place. But I think with good intentions and support, anyone can have that. Anyone can have that in their life.
Yeah. Wow. So I liked how you said we need to embrace it. We need to give it a hug. And by the way, I'm trying not to be rude here, but I'm taking notes. So, I mean, I can watch this replay like everyone else, I'm sure will, when they get home today or this weekend, but I'm here going crazy, taking down all of this wisdom that you're sharing with us because, stress is, like you said, it's biological. It's a natural occurrence. We have the emotional stress, the stress that we feel on a daily basis, with our families, with our spouses, our children, our work. And then we have stress, like you said, when there's life transitions, a death of the family or somebody in the family, or a loved one, a pet, or even for me, Cait, it's been watching the news. How that
the news is the big one.
So to try to leverage that stress that kind of rises in me when I watch the news, I just now shut it down. I can no longer watch television after 7 p.m. at night. And I only have like a 30-minute window to watch the news. Now I kid that I live in a bubble, but I really protect what I listen to. I really protect what I put into my mind and as well. Yeah. And into my body as well. So I'm very protective of what I do because stress for me has always been really challenging to control. And so that's why I'm taking crazy notes here. So I'm seeing a ton of comments, I promise, and questions. We're going to get to them in just a second. Because I want to, have Cait kind of expand on, she mentioned the nutritional aspect, which was wow. I mean, because you've got that background and how you said we have a choice, right? We have choices. There's, to help with the stress level and nutrition is certainly one of those things. And so moving that body, getting physical too, and moving that, the energy inside your chakra centers, inside these meridian centers help as well. And so stress is something really, really important for all of us. So Cait, tell us, I guess, can you expand a little bit more on that nutritional part, if you can?
I would love to. This is one of the topics that's most near and dear to my heart. So when I talk about stress and nutrition, I always start with blood sugar. So blood sugar balance is one of the best and most powerful things you can do to set yourself up for a day and a life of embracing stress. Yeah. Physiologically, when we have imbalanced blood sugar, we feel brain fog, we might feel lightheaded, and everyone's different. So some people are much more sensitive to blood sugar ups and downs, and others don't feel the physical symptoms of it. But ultimately, when we can eat both from a food combination standpoint as well as a timing standpoint, in a mindful and intentional way, we can keep our blood sugar stable throughout the days such that we're not exposing ourselves to these massive blood sugar spikes and then their subsequent dips, which then it exposes us then to feel the effects of anything else that comes into our field, whether it be the news or a message from our boss or, something that pops up. If we feel good physically in our bodies, then we are much more capable of dealing with what comes our way externally. Right. And I always talk about the gut is the pathway to really health. I mean, at the end of the day, 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in our gut. Wow. So when we talk about blood sugar balance, some of these other tactical, mechanical things when it comes to nutrition, I'm all about supporting the gut. So in the work that I do with my clients, we go deep in talking about what we can be doing from a nutrition standpoint, both in the way of what we're eating, how we're eating, mindful eating practices, meal timing, and all of these good things. And nutrition is a very noisy world. A lot of people get really passionate about one way of eating, and then they think everyone should eat that way. And I'm a big believer in that all of our bodies are different, so we need to eat intuitively for our own bodies. Yeah. So that's a big part of the work that I do as well, is really trying to leverage the gut and optimizing the flow of that. And sometimes there's hidden stress. Like, we might feel fine mentally and emotionally with stress, but ultimately we have more bacteria cells in our body than we do human cells. Sure. So we're actually more bacteria than we are human. Wow. So if our gut bacteria is imbalanced in any way, we're also our bodies are going to be fighting that stress from an immune response in our system, or if we have unique food sensitivities that we don't know about. You don't have to be full-blown allergic to a food in order for your body internally to exhibit a immune response. So it's, understanding what foods work for you, making sure that your gut bacteria is in alignment. All of these things are really tactical, mechanical things that lay the foundation for having the ability to deal with stress on a daily basis. So I think that's super important as well.
I mean, it's super important. Yeah. I mean, you're starting from the inside out on the physiological level, which, I mean, I thought we were going to talk about, meditation and some journaling. No, we're talking about some, nutritional, foundational work that we do need to take into consideration when we're talking about stress and leveraging stress. So Cait, what do you think? We've got a question in here.
Let's do it.
Or question comment. And since we're talking about nutrition, let's see here. So the question comment is, I had weight loss surgery and have lost 100 pounds. My surgeon said with weight loss, anger can spike. Odd, don't you think? What are your thoughts on that?
That's interesting. Well, I do believe that anytime our bodies go through this massive transition or change, which, by the way, congratulations, that's amazing. I mean, that's something to be really excited about. But 100 pounds at the end of the day, you're shedding a lot of weight. And I believe that sometimes emotions get trapped in our physical body. Even for the people that do so much inner work and are constantly meditating and journaling and releasing things still get caught up inside of us, whether it's from years and years ago or from last week. So ultimately, that actually resonates with me a lot, I think. And it doesn't have to just be anger. I mean, I'd be curious to get the doctor's perspective more on why anger, but I think in general, any kind of emotion, depending upon the type of person you are, maybe it's sadness or even a more positive emotion. I think, again, I believe that emotions get trapped in our physical body. So when you're shedding a lot of that physically, I think the release emotionally absolutely will happen.
Yeah. And the energetic body too. You've got all these meridian points. You've got the chakra centers. The first three chakras are rooted in our foundation, in our emotional bodies. Yep. And so when you do the releasing in these three centers below, then the remaining seven up top from the heart above, you release all of all of those emotional stressors. And so as you're talking about the physical body, I'm immediately thinking the energy centers too and the meridian point. Yeah. So thank you for answering that. And we've got some more here. So let's see here. So here's a comment. Sandra has been reading up on gut health. Interesting how stress is part of this, and you talked a little bit about that. Any other words of wisdom regarding the gut?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So stress actually, depending upon, again, so what I want to make a comment on, I didn't mention this yet, but I think it's really important. I don't think a lot of people realize this, is there's more than one stress response physically in our bodies. So most people think fight or flight. They think cortisol, which is the main stress hormone. But there's actually more than one stress response. There's a challenge response. There's a tend and befriend response, which women tend to typically exhibit more than men. So depending upon the stress response will affect the gut. But what I'll speak to is more fight or flight related, which is kind of the stereotypical, what people think about is when cortisol is exhibited, and cortisol gets a bad rap, but there's actually some benefits to cortisol and it's there to protect us. But when we have a fight or flight stress response, the makeup of our gut bacteria, our microbiome, changes pretty much instantly. So if we're under chronic stress, ideally we're 80% good bacteria and 20% quote unquote pathogenic or bad bacteria. That would be an ideal state. When we experience more and more chronic stress, that shifts. Things get out of balance, good bacteria dies off, which allows bad bacteria to spread more, which leads us to, other infections or viral infections. So that's why, again, knowing what your stress response is, knowing how to, getting better insight and doing the work to, when you do feel stress, exhibiting these other more beneficial types of stress responses versus that fight or flight where we get really tense. We might feel it in our chest. We might feel it in our stomach and our lower back. That's a big area where people feel it. So that will absolutely have a physiological, pretty much immediate change in the makeup of the gut microbiome and the bacterial levels. So that's something that is super fascinating, right? Because that's kind of, like I said, the gateway to health. So if our guts are changing for the better or for the worse, we're certainly going to feel those effects physically via, the symptoms we feel and how we feel every day.
Extraordinary research out there. Cait, thanks for sharing that. We've got more. Do we have time for some more, Cait?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I blocked myself off for another half an hour, so we can stay on as long as needed.
Good. So we've got Jamie saying, stress forces me to sometimes over-accomplish or overproduce. After, I'm physically tired and want to sleep for days. So I'm guessing this is okay, but not the best. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't think looking at any of this is, we don't want to look at it as good or bad, right? Like, we just want to notice what it is and then what the effects are for us. I think ultimately you said that was Jamie that said that?
Yeah.
So Jamie, I can really resonate with that. I actually spent 10 years in corporate America in the banking industry before starting my own health and wellness business. So I was very much in that state of, like, I'm just going to overachieve until I completely can't do anything. And then I'm going to, like, tap out for, like, weeks at a time. So I can totally relate to that. I think, asking yourself, B, does this serve me well? I don't think there's no one should tell you what's right or wrong. It's what works for you. And I think what works for you now might be different than what works from you a year from now or 5 years from now or even a month from now. But I would say that if you find yourself after the fact, when you're really fatigued and you're sleeping a lot and you're, feeling those effects, ask yourself, well, what can I do in those moments when I am producing that maybe change the way I feel after the fact? So again, maybe it's just taking more frequent breaks. Maybe it's checking in with yourself physically and saying, like, because I know some people, when they get in like that produce mode, they're not eating. So we go back to blood sugar management, right? So a lot of those things maybe physically that you could be doing to stop and just, like, have a tall drink of water and take some, like, do, like, even just 5 minutes between, like, every, the studies prove that, like, we work best in 90-minute blocks. So maybe even just when you are in that produce mode for, call it, like, a week at a time, during your day, every 90 minutes, stop and just do, like, a 5-minute little meditation, stretch, like, just get your body kind of opening. I do a lot of the work that I do with my clients. I have this, like, toolkit that I use. It's 16 different tools that are a combination of breathing, visualization, and also physical, like, movement things that are proven to stimulate certain parts of the brain and the nervous system that help with that, like, rest and digest response. So finding what works for you in terms of breathing, meditation, food, anything that you feel like nourishes you, but just really, at the end of the day, we are what we repeatedly do. So to notice our habits and then just kind of tweak them. It doesn't have to be this overarching change if that's kind of your default, but find little tiny ways each time you find yourself in these cycles that you can honor taking those little breaks in between when you feel like you've been in go hustle mode for a long time.
Yeah, very good, Cait. Thank you. Okay, one last question, and this is also from Jamie. This was actually one that she asked earlier into our interview. She wrote, let's see, here we go. Let me put that on the screen. Since we're talking about wellness, we're talking about health. She wrote, my grandmother on my father's side was a hypochondriac, and that is true. I've got a few in my family. If she were alive today, what would be your best advice for her?
Oh, wow. That's a really good one. I think everyone's individualistic. So I'm a big believer in, like, getting to know the whole person and where their fears stem from. A lot of times what we think we're afraid of or what seems like it's a block actually comes from a whole other area. And I'm a big believer in what we feel and ultimately comes from thoughts we're thinking, which ultimately comes from our belief system. So we really have to break it down into, like, what are our beliefs about health? Sometimes I work with people and maybe not in this exact scenario, but in a scenario where they're having this block from a health perspective, they've shared with me that they don't feel worthy of having a good, healthy body. So, doing that deeper inner work to figure out where that block is actually stemming from. And then when we can shine some light and awareness around that piece and do some work there, a lot of times, like, what we see externally dissolves and kind of melts away on its own. So, I would want to, I think, talk to her a little more and get to know her at a little bit of a better level. But I think anytime we can do that kind of mindset work to really, like, look at our fears and see where those are stemming from, because a lot of times too, it can be like relational. Those things can stem from a relational thing that occurred in her past that she may or may not remember. So ultimately, it's really important to note that 90% of what we think, do, and believe is subconscious. So consciously, intelligently, she and other people that have that same condition might think certain things intellectually and consciously, but it's the reason why they have those beliefs. It's stemming from something that's going on at a deeper subconscious level. So, there's not this magic wand, I would say. I think it's just, again, like, doing the work and trying to uncover. You ultimately, I always say, like, you could have two people that have the same condition or even symptom, and they have, different reasons for feeling that way. So it might manifest in the same way for, a handful of people, but the root cause might be a little different. And also, when we talk about the gut too, like, what I think is important to note is that 90% of our neurotransmitters are controlled by our gut, things like serotonin and dopamine, how we feel and what controls anxiety. There's been a lot of studies, and I know in the work that I've done and with other health and wellness experts that I'm connected to, a lot of people that have those mental and emotional concerns and fears have actually been shown to have things in their gut going on, like parasites or yeast overgrowth, or things that are actually going on from a physiological, biological level that then affect how they feel mentally and emotionally. So again, I think doing a lot of that gut work is really important. And a lot of times when you can get the gut cleaned up, the feelings that you feel from, like, an anxiety perspective, depression, fear, a lot of those core emotions that are tied to our guts also are subsided in doing the work from just a healing perspective with physical work. So it's definitely multifaceted. There's a lot, I think, to uncover there. But I would say just bringing in mindfulness is the first key, is starting to be aware of your thoughts and what thought are you thinking before you actually feel that feeling, and trying to connect the dots.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to answer all these questions.
You're welcome. I'm happy to do it. I love it.
I appreciate you. I want to thank everyone who's watching or who tuned in earlier and posted your questions. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much. Please post your question below. Cait and I will be on the lookout to respond to you over the next day or so. But I want to ask Cait to share with us how to find her and how can we, stay in touch with you and follow all your amazing tips and recommendations.
Yeah, so there's a few ways. So as far as social media is concerned, Facebook and Instagram, you can find me at the handle at Cait Ross Co. So CaitRossCo, both on Instagram and Facebook. And then my website is CaitRossCo.com. And there's a contact page there if anyone's interested in talking one-on-one. I love doing that. And I do free consultations for people that are looking to dive deeper into this stuff. So on my contact page, if you're interested, you can certainly sign up for a session with me. And then I also, and Denise, you and I can coordinate this perhaps. I do have this stress relief guide that I've created. It's about an 8 or 9 page PDF document.
Great.
So I can get the email addresses from everyone or anyone that's interested in receiving that, get that on my distribution list, which will allow you to receive that free ebook guide. And then you'll be on my mailing list going forward. So any updates that I send going forward, you would continue to receive.
Great. Cait, if we can, in a separate post, because you as a member, by the way, Cait is in the group with us. As a member, Cait, you can post anything you'd like. So if you want to post a link to your sign up or your subscription list so that we can get that ebook in exchange for getting on your mailing list, please do that. So everyone stay tuned for that. We're going to have Cait do that so we can download that ebook. So Cait, before we go, can you just share some parting words, any words of wisdom for our group?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. So, I would say when it comes to stress and really just life in general, it's this balance between, I think, doing the inner work to realize, what's causing these feelings, but also just, I think what I've learned personally is just letting yourself, give yourself some slack sometimes. I think we're all really hard on ourselves. I know I am, and I know a lot of the women and the people the women and men that I surround myself with are very high achieving and passionate individuals, which is amazing. But I think we all could benefit from giving ourselves a break sometimes. So however that looks for you, whether that's, again, letting yourself, well, nutrition's important, but letting yourself indulge, having that ice cream if it feels good and it feels right, not beating yourself up for it. Yeah. So, and I think the biggest thing is when it comes to health and really well-being, vitality, and longevity, our relationships at the end of the day are one of the most important, if not the most important factor in how we feel. They say that we're the combination of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So I would say just be mindful of how you feel when you spend time with people. Don't be afraid to say no and set boundaries if spending time with someone depletes you of energy. Honoring yourself and honoring how you feel is the most important, because ultimately you can't serve and live your purpose in this world if you're depleted and don't feel well. So don't be afraid to say no and set those boundaries.
Yeah, right on. Cait, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom. Everyone, please show Cait some love. Please comment on this replay. Make sure you stay tuned for her sign-up sheet so that we can get that free ebook. And by the way, Cait, in the comments already, we've got Jamie who provided her email address.
Great.
Yeah, so we've got Jamie who wants that ebook today, and I'm actually going to do the same because that's something that we all need some help with, how to leverage the stress. So thank you, Cait, for your time this afternoon. I appreciate you. I honor you. I thank you for sharing your words of wisdom with our group.
Thank you, Denise. I had a blast being on here, so I appreciate you and appreciate you having me on the show.
You're very welcome, Cait. We'll be in touch. We'll see your post very soon.
Yeah, I'll have it on there within the next 30 minutes. So.
Great. Okay, thank you so much, Cait, and everyone have a wonderful afternoon and a fantastic holiday weekend. Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.